Carla. This issue concerns the ongoing failure by the government to fulfil a commitment it gave to the people of Dublin and indeed to the people of Ringsend and Irishtown in particular, that 900 affordable houses would be constructed on the Irish Glass Bottle site. At the outset, I just want to welcome members of the Irish Glass Bottle Site Housing Action Group to the gallery. I also want to note that although I'm pleased to see Minister Phelan here, I'm disappointed that Minister Murphy isn't here. This was one of the biggest social and affordable housing projects that had been advanced by the government, and unfortunately it's become bogged down in bureaucracy. Back in May 2017, an agreement was reached between the government and Dublin City Council and NAMA that the government would provide funding for the purpose of purchasing 900 social and affordable houses. An SDZ was subsequently approved by Dublin City Council. It was approved on the basis of representations made to the Council by the Minister for Housing at the time that the receiver was on board and that there was agreement that there could be 25% social and affordable housing on the site, and there was going to be a total of, I think, 3,500 units constructed. There was then great surprise when we had an appeal by the receiver earlier this year, was heard in April 2018 before An Bord Pleanála. It's now become even more delayed because recently An Bord Pleanála contacted Dublin City Council to state that they required further information. They've given the Council until January of next year to provide that information. So what we really need to hear from the government is, when is there going to be an agreement reached between the City Council, funded by the government, and the receiver? The members of Dublin City Council entered into this SDZ. They approved of it because they believed that there was an agreement that existed between the receiver and the government. So responsibility rests on the government in this, last count, Corla. It's become bogged down in bureaucracy. The people in Irishtown and Ringsend are waiting for these houses to be constructed. It's an essential part of the government's housing policy, in particular social and affordable housing policy, and we've seen no development in respect of it as of yet. So it's become a mess, and I want answers from the government.
I get Minister has 4 minutes.
Sorry, my apologies.
Deputy Ryan.
Deputy Callan has laid out the details very well, but we need to know not just when this agreement in terms of the provision of social and affordable housing on the site in Poolbeg is going to be agreed, but also we need to make sure that it is the right form of agreement. Back on the 25th of May in 2017, I asked Minister Coveney to set out what exactly did he envisage the affordable housing that would be provided within this agreement between the Council and the developer and the State. And he said in his response then that it would be predominantly affordable rental, with the balance being social housing, which would be targeted provision for elderly people, which I think would be very welcome. There's a huge problem in the area of local people not being able to afford housing, and a need for affordable rental housing, I presume delivered by a cost rental model. It maintains the land and the units within public ownership. It helps lower the rental costs for everyone. It's a win-win-win. But we need to make sure that's the case, that the government is not going down an affordable purchase scheme, in this case incredibly likely to be very expensive properties. It's an ideal location close to the centre of Dublin. That would rule it out for the vast majority of local people, even at the sort of discounts that would apply, but I think fundamentally it would not be right. And alternative mechanisms, the alternative mechanisms of what government might call affordable housing at the moment, where they're just shoveling money in from HAP and other payments to the private rental sector, is not affordable housing, or it's not where we need to be going. So yes, we need to know when there's going to be agreement, but we need to know the details of what the agreement will be, and confirmation, as Minister Coveney said, it will be affordable rental with housing for, or rental for social housing for elderly. That's what those additional 550 units above the standard social housing that's going to be provided has to be.
Minister.
Thank you, Lascan Corla. I want to thank the deputies for raising this important issue of the ongoing situation at the former Irish Glass Bottle site in Ringsend, which I'm taking on behalf of Minister Murphy, who can't be here. I don't want to get into too much of a row with Deputy O'Callaghan, but I am a Minister of State in the Department of Housing, and I can understand when deputies wish to have a minister from a department there, but it's unreasonable to expect that deputies get to pick who the minister is. In May of 2016, the government, not Dublin City Council, designated Poolbeg West as a strategic development zone because of its potential to deliver a large proportion of extra homes needed in the centre of Dublin. The government's designation of the area as an SDZ cleared the way for Dublin City Council as the designated development agency to take the next step in drawing up a very detailed planning scheme or master plan to guide the development of the area. Dublin City Council duly prepared a draft planning scheme which was considered by the Council's elected members in May 2017 and appeared in and approved in October of 2017 after the scheme was amended to take account of inputs from public consultation. As a statutory consultee for that process, the Department highlighted the importance of the planning scheme, addressing a variety of housing needs and relevant matters. For clarity, it is important to note that there is currently an appeal to An Bord Pleanála in relation to the planning scheme. The progress of development on the site will be dependent significantly on the nature and timing of the decision of the board. It's my understanding that An Bord Pleanála sought additional information in relation to the proposed planning scheme from Dublin City Council on the 20th of September last and must revert to the board with that information before the 17th of January 2019, and after which the board will make its final decision on the matter. Securing an approved planning scheme for this site is a key step in enabling its development to progress. This is a matter for the City Council and An Bord Pleanála, and Minister Murphy has no role in such matters. Indeed, under the provisions of Section 30 of the Planning and Development Act, the Minister can play no role in relation to a particular case before either a planning authority or An Bord Pleanála. Pending the finalisation of the appeal process and without prejudice to its outcome, I nevertheless wish to put on the record that Minister Murphy is committed to working with the City Council and the relevant approved housing bodies and all stakeholders relevant to the SDZ to see the site's development potential, particularly in terms of housing, fully realised. If the planning scheme is approved, implementation of the SDZ must include delivery of additional social and affordable housing from this site over and above Part 5 obligations and of the order of magnitude laid out in the adopted planning scheme, subject to agreement on all the normal and relevant terms, including value for money aspects. The Department also understands that the receiver is engaging with the City Council with a view to advancing an approach that would better enable the orderly development of this strategic but complex city location, and also assist in delivering much-needed additional social and affordable housing. Minister Murphy is ready to support such initiatives, subject to observance of all the normal value for money, procurement and wider legal aspects. It's interesting to listen to the deputies. They both, I suppose, share Minister Murphy's wish that this site would be developed as expeditiously as possible, but there's subtle differences between what they both expressed in their contributions. Deputy O'Callaghan, his emphasis was exclusively on timelines, whereas Deputy Ryan was expressing concerns that the right balance and mix should be delivered. And those are the issues that, first of all, Dublin City Council and secondly, An Bord Pleanála will consider with the draft plan, subject to its approval. I also think that members shouldn't mislead the general public in Ringsend or anywhere else to the effect that the Minister can get directly involved in a decision that An Bord Pleanála have to make. The law is very strict, and we've had many planning inquiries and tribunals, and results of which have led to planning law in the shape that it is in this country, which means that the Minister has no role in influencing the decision of An Bord Pleanála. But he is adamant that once that decision is made, that this vital city centre location would be suitably developed.
I get 1 minute.
Thanks, Minister. Can I just explain to you why in this situation there is a role for the Minister? The STZ was unusual because it provided for 25% social and affordable housing. As you know, the law sets out only 10%. So the reason why that was permitted and why Dublin City Council went along with that 25% requirement was because the Council was led to believe that an arrangement had been reached with the receiver, that an arrangement had been reached by the department with the receiver, and that the receiver was on board then for the purposes of the unusual 25% social and affordable housing. That's why this is different to the standard mechanism, and that's why it was such a surprise when it was found out that there was going to be an appeal by the receiver to An Bord Pleanála. Like, the other thing that distinguishes this site is that, first of all, it is an enormous proposed development in terms of social and affordable housing. The units itself, there's going to be 3,500 of them, and there was to be 900 social and affordable units. That is, supposedly, a flagship project for the government, and the government should be really on top of it in terms of ensuring that it's delivered. But also, it's a part of the city which is crying out for some social and affordable houses. There are communities down there that young people just can't afford even to rent units in the vicinity, and it makes it unique that this part of the city requires proper consideration and that there is development of this site promptly.
There's no difference, I don't believe, between myself and Deputy Phelan, but I simply want to get confirmation, because it is the state's role in deciding what the nature of the affordable housing is. And as I said, and to reiterate it, on the Thursday the 25th of May, Minister Coveney said on this particular scheme, in this development, in relation to those 550 units, they would be affordable rental, with an additional smaller amount of social housing which would be targeted at the elderly. Now, I welcome that. I think it's the right thing to do. We've still a lot of work to do in the mechanism, the exact mechanism of rental. But I want reassurance that it's social rental we're doing, and affordable rental, not affordable for sale, in this particular development, because I think it's important, as Deputy Phelan says, there are local people who are being priced completely out of this area, both in purchasing and in renting. We need affordable rental to give them a home to live in.
Do I get 2 minutes, Minister?
Again, thank the deputies for the contribution on the matter. I'm limited, I suppose, in what I can say, in the sense that it's currently before on board Penala, but to answer directly some of the questions that have been put. Affordable housing will be delivered under 3 areas of activity on the site. Firstly, to enable affordable housing for purchase. Relevant provisions of the Housing Miscellaneous Act 2009 have been commenced. Additionally, to support local authorities, or the local authority to get sites ready for the delivery of affordable housing, the government has committed in the budget extra money that we'll all be familiar with. Finally, the cost-based rental housing is, in the notes that I've been given, still the primary delivery of social housing on the site in question, and the government position on that hasn't changed. In relation to Deputy O'Callaghan, I'm sure, without having spoken directly to Minister Murphy, that he shares your frustration in relation to the delays in the process. But you'll be familiar with the fact that planning laws allow anybody to lodge an objection or an appeal at any stage, and there is no way of government or any local authority or anyone else binding, in this case, a receiver or anyone else from lodging an objection. This is a flagship project, and the government, I can assure you, is very much on top of it. The position at the moment is, though, that we require Dublin City Council first to provide the extra information, and then on board Penala, which has received an increase in staff complement recently, to deal with a backlog in cases, that they can deal expeditiously with the information when it's provided, and that this site can be developed.